Great. And we're live. So welcome everybody to this remote interview. My name is Lisette and I'm interviewing people and companies doing great things remotely. And today on the line, I have Tom Henricksen from Des Moines, Iowa. And Tom, I met you because you're organizing the Agile Online Summit, which we will talk about. But you're also a tech leader, a speaker, and a career coach at myitcareercoach.com. So we're also going to get into that because I think a lot of people on this podcast, or a lot of listeners on this podcast, are in the tech industry. So they will love to hear what you have to say. But first, let's start with the first question. What does your virtual office look like? And what do you need to get your work done?
That is a great question, Lisette. My virtual office many times just is really a laptop and a Wi-Fi, depending on where I'm at and what I'm doing. But I really have tried to embrace the remote working environment and make it as flexible as possible, because depending on family demands or things, we have to work from wherever we're at, and I try to be as flexible as possible. So if it's I need to take my kids or have to be at home for this morning, actually, we have a heating and cooling man coming later in the morning after our call. So it's helpful to be flexible because, as you know, sometimes things break and we need to have people come and fix things. So it helps to have that flexible remote availability.
Indeed. And did you transition from an office job at some point, or how long have you been working from a home office?
I've been working kind of in a flexible environment for about 4 years now, where I work remotely quite a bit. So it's one of those things that I enjoy. Like I mentioned, it's helpful depending on, like actually a year or so ago, my mother actually was having a surgery and I was able to work remotely from the hospital. So it's one of those things that depending on, what comes up in life, that's one of the beauties of this remote working.
Indeed. So indeed, I misspoke. I should say it's not necessarily the home office. It's a flexible environment that you're working in. So you're working from anywhere, literally.
Yep.
Okay. So let's dive into the Agile Online Summit, because I'm going to premiere this podcast a couple of weeks before the summit starts. And we're doing that on purpose because I want people to actually be there. A lot of listeners are also in the Agile community. What is the Agile Online Summit and what inspired you to organize this event?
Well, Lisette, that is a good question. What's inspired me, it's really talking and working with people like yourself. So as I mentioned, I think we had spoke before about this, but I've been involved with many Agile people and people here locally. Here in Des Moines, Central Iowa, we have a good Agile community. But then I've been really impressed as I've traveled and been to other conferences, how willing people are to talk and to work and really help each other out. And that's one of the things is I've started to reach out to people and been inspired to think about how can we take, all this information and get it to people, because everybody, it's hard to get everybody to go to, I'm trying to think that I think the Agile 2017 conference was just, maybe it was in Orlando or somewhere, a big city like that. You can have all these great speakers, but I think it's hard to get people, I know you live in the Netherlands, to go to a big conference would be pretty expensive. And same thing for me, if you're not invited or if you have to pay, if your company doesn't pay for this, it's a lot of money to put together to get to a big summit or something like that. So
and time. It's not just expensive with money; it's expensive with time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, as you imagine, getting stuck in an airport or traveling, it's a lot to do that. So what I wanted to do, I have a friend that has done this with a different industry. So he has done some summits, and I thought, well, why not try a summit with Agile speakers to put this online, and so people can, be at home or their office, or maybe they want to be in a Starbucks or some coffee shop somewhere, or wherever they are. They have an internet connection. They can watch and talk to, really listen to some of these people on the Agile Online Summit. People like yourself, Lisette.
Yeah, I was honored to be asked to be a part of that. But, one thing in the Agile world that I come across all the time is that Agile cannot be done online. It has to be face-to-face. And I'm not sure, what kind of things are you hearing from your other Agile speakers, or have you heard anything from other Agile speakers about online and Agile?
Well, I think, Lisette, you're really kind of at the vanguard of a lot of companies are moving their Agile teams, online or remote, because they want to embrace that talent base that lies wherever those people might be. So for instance, as I mentioned, I'm here in Des Moines. We only have so many people that want to move to Des Moines. It can get a little cold here. It's probably going to snow here in a month or two. So some people don't like that. I know I have a brother who recently moved to Arizona because his wife grew up there and they like it warm, but not everybody likes the cold climate we have. We were talking before we started the recording. You were out hiking and enjoying the fall foliage in the Netherlands. That's something too. Everybody likes to live in a different part of the country. Some people like to be close to a beach. Some people like to be up near the mountains, wherever they may be. But that talent we want on an Agile team can be anywhere. And I think that's one of the great things that you talk a lot about to people is how important to embrace that, that remote or virtual office experience and let people work from wherever they feel the best. And I think that's important.
Yeah, indeed. I'm always really surprised at how strong the kickback is against that in the Agile community. I mean, I think that there are people who recognize how important having the best people on the team are, but there's really a lot of kickback from people in terms of, well, can it be done remote or does it have to be co-located? I mean, in the manifesto, it says face-to-face. I always say, though, the manifesto was written back in 2011, and a lot has happened. No, wait, was it 2011 or 2001?
I think it's 2001.
Yeah, 2001. I mean, think about how much has happened since 2001. Oh, yeah. And so I'm thinking face-to-face could just be e-face to e-face. But I am surprised at how much kickback there is for colocation. And don't get me wrong, colocation, I'm sure, is great for some teams. It's just, I think that the expansion is so important.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Have you had any anti-online people join your summit? Or anti-remote, I should say? I
would say pretty much everyone on the summit, I think, is pro remote working and promoting that flexible work environments. I think, like you mentioned, the manifesto came out in 2001. A lot has changed. As we kind of talk over this, Zoom technology, there's so many options for people to remotely work together. I think things are moving in a way that, the telepresence technology is, you think about our smartphones and things we can use to really talk face to face. There's, very rarely is there a time where we can't connect or communicate in a more feature rich environment.
Right. Indeed. I mean, yeah, it's indeed. I totally agree, of course. I totally agree. So yeah. So you're hoping with this online summit to get people together to share their knowledge without having to spend the time and money of going to a conference. And so you've organized, how many speakers do you have?
Right now, I think we have about 22 speakers involved in the summit. So that's the thing. I know I've had a couple other people reach out to me as well as I've been putting it together, and people like you've been promoting it, I know, and many of the other speakers. So a lot of people want to be involved. A lot of people are registering. So it's really building. And so I'm excited to see it come to fruition. So
I can imagine. Fun to organize something like that, and a lot of work, as I came to know when I tried to organize my own conference once. It was an in-person conference, and it was a lot of work. So respect there. And so people can sign up and they get a recording. Is that how it works? And what I'm sure the recordings will be available later. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yep. So what the summit is during the week, so it's going to start October 30th. And during that week, it will be free to everyone with a general admission pass. So we do have a VIP pass if people want to see it later. And then we also have a VIP plus a group coaching that's available too. I know people have been asking about that. So there will be some coaching involved where some of the coaches, the speakers will come on and be coaching people through some of the things they struggle with and that they've talked through. So I think that's going to be exciting as well. So, but yeah, it will be free that week. There will be a schedule. I'm putting up the schedule now. We're going to have, I believe we're going to try to do about 4 speakers a day. There might be a couple days where we have more, like I said, with the number and getting everything set up. And so we'll have emails that will go out during the day to share those videos to everybody. And then there's also going to be a Facebook group as well. And so we're just trying to, build in ways to make it, make that connection, give people a, ability to talk, kind of like, I know a lot of people who talk about conferences, talk about those hallway conversations and how important that is. So I think we're going to try to do a lot of that connection over social media, via Facebook and Twitter. So we're really trying to build in that feature-rich, full conference feel.
Right. So you can interact with people also while you're watching the videos.
Yep.
Sometimes when I've been involved with or when I've attended online conferences, one of the things that we've done is start a Slack channel in one of the groups that I'm in so that we can, as we're watching the talk, we can kind of talk back and forth. Sounds like that's the same kind of thing that you're doing with the Facebook group and also.
Yeah.
But I have to say it was pretty powerful to be able to talk with your friends during somebody's speech or to ask questions or to post links together. It was so I recommend that for other people out there who have their own online groups, starting
Definitely.
a special Slack channel. Yeah, it's good. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your history and how you got to this stage. So you started myitcareercoach.com. Tell
Correct.
us a little bit about that. How did you start that and what do you do?
So a few years ago, as I was learning about Agile and a lot of these different techniques, I wanted to kind of share a lot of the things I was learning. So I started this blog, My IT Career Coach, and I tried to help, people with their IT careers as well as topics like Agile, remote working, things kind of, that work around that technology space, those technology careers, because I find that, a lot of times people in technology careers will focus strictly on the technology, but there's so many other, I guess I'll call them challenges that people run into outside of that. For instance, just simple things like, like we're doing, working together, that collaboration. There's people that really can struggle with that. I know a few people that I've worked with, or simple things like just communicating with people, because when you work on a project, like with an Agile team or any team really, especially on a remote team, you got to foster that communication and make sure people understand what is expected, what people want. A lot of times, there's so many horror stories in technology about, maybe it's a requirements or a user story in an Agile team that, people assume things. And really, I forget who said it, but I know when I was going through my Agile training a few years ago, and I, of course, listening to a lot of other speakers on the topics, but that a user story is really to start a conversation. And that's what Agile, and even in the manifesto, talks about, fostering those communication, conversations, and getting people to talk. And I think when we do that, that's when people, can really understand what's expected and really be successful with, with their career and putting together, whatever it is they're working on to meet those expectations. Because if we assume, we just have a quick conversation, you and I, Lizette, and you say, hey, Tom, do this. And I don't ask a lot of questions. I might assume, oh, Lizette wants me to build a bridge. And you just said, oh, I just want Tom to cut this board, something simple. So those expectations we need to communicate and clarify. And I think that's what I try to do, with people in their technology careers.
So what kind of people are coming to you for help?
Well, it's really interesting because I know sometimes I'll get people who are just starting out or even considering a technology career. I know I've worked with some local community colleges, which are a 2-year school here in the United States. And I'll get a lot of people. I know some people from the local one here that will talk to me and have, there's a couple people that are interested. They have some questions, it might be something like that. Or it could be too, for instance, I recently worked with a gentleman here in the States that had been downsized. He had worked for a major telecommunications company for over 15 years, hadn't really done a job search, didn't really have a LinkedIn profile that was up to date or resume, didn't know how to really approach the interview process and job search. So, it just ranges the whole gamut of people in technology and what they're looking for. Maybe it's just something new. Maybe they want a new challenge. Maybe it's just updating some things or it just kind of depends. There's a lot of different people out there and a lot of different challenges that they have.
Interesting. So yeah, I can imagine. I was thinking, newbies, people who are just out of school, but the downsizing, that is an interesting category of people because I hear about that a lot is companies downsizing and they've been there for a really long time and the job market and the way we market ourselves has changed a lot. And I mean, speaking of, since 2001,
Yeah.
Things have changed a lot in the job market there. So that's really interesting. Okay.
Yep.
And do you find that there's a lot of people who are looking for remote jobs in particular? Is there any preference for that now, or what do you see?
Yeah, I see a lot more of that, and it's growing. I know a few years ago, I wrote a book called Cracking the Career Code. And in that book, I profiled a gentleman that I worked with. His name is Brian. And he kind of was one of the first people that exposed me to this remote working lifestyle. So Brian, he's still a friend of mine, and I follow him on Facebook, and he travels around the world, but he works as a software developer. And, he's, I remember a few years ago, my family and I were on a vacation to Playa del Carmen, which is near Cancun, Mexico. And I met Brian, and I had lunch, and he just kind of told me how he does this and how he was in Playa del Carmen. He had rented a flat there and was working for, I think, 6 months there. And he said, he gets up in the morning, takes a walk on the beach, works for 4 hours or so, and then he'll grab lunch and then, work a little more in the afternoon. Then he might do something fun in the evening, might relax. So it's just depends, but it's, it kind of opened my eyes. And really, I know this is what a lot of people you work with, but he's traveling all over, and I see him, like he was in Russia recently, or in Europe, has been to Southeast Asia. So it's kind of neat how people, take that remote lifestyle.
Oh yeah, indeed. And it's interesting because a lot of people think like, oh, the glamour of being on the road. But like for me personally, I'm not a digital nomad at all. I like my home base. I love to travel, but I like coming back to my home base. So yeah, it sounds really glorious, but it's definitely a type. It's definitely something that people want to do.
Yeah,
I think
you really need to find what works for you.
Right. Right. And a lot of employers are scared that like, oh my God, people are going to go and travel all over the world, and I'm going to have a company of digital nomads. But I find that tends to be, it's not most people doing that. It's, there are some people who do that, but it's definitely not most people who do that. What is it about the flexibility that you like so much personally?
I think for me, it's really that flexibility kind of to really help with that work-life balance for people, depending on what's going on in because I mentioned like, maybe there's a family illness or something like that. We have 2 kids, so it's something I know we're busy with them. But like you mentioned, some of us want that digital nomad lifestyle and travel. Others do not, it's, but it's whatever works for you, and kind of finding that good fit. Perhaps it's maybe finding a quieter place to work. I know I've talked to a few people about a few years ago, I worked with a gentleman who really needed that quiet time he was a software developer, to really kind of hone in. He needed a quiet place to do his work and really, so I think that's sometimes, really helpful. So I think that's one of the things we have to consider.
I agree. I'm one of those people that really likes to have a quiet space and to be totally alone. I mean, I'm never alone because I'm connected with I belong to a virtual co-working space. I'm online all day, but I really do need it to be quiet. An open office was killer for me. So I can imagine, and programmers, you guys are looking for semicolons and all kinds of code and numbers sometimes. I can only imagine that the constant interruption must be just killer for some people to be able to do that. So one of the things I want to ask about is family, and how do your kids take to you being home all the time, or what kind of boundaries did you have to set there?
Yeah, that's a good question to kind of set that up. We really have to have a good place to work and have kind of a time where, where the door has to be closed, and we need to be, if we're on a call like this, or if I'm meeting with some other colleagues. But 2, it's helpful when like the kids are sick or something like that I can be home, or if I need to run. For instance, my son has a lot of activities, and my daughter too. If I need to run and get them, and I just, have to quick IM people, say, hey, I'm going to be back. I got to go pick up my son or whatever. Just kind of really, communicating well. Because that's one of the things I know I at first didn't do a good job of communicating in that. And that's one of the things that's really important, to let the people know that you're working with, where you're at. If you're going to be out for a few minutes, let them know and communicate that with them so they're up to speed.
Right. Yeah, I really like that. In fact, it's, I'm going to be gone 15 minutes and taking my son to baseball practice or whatever it is, and then coming back. Indeed, communicating it with it well. Okay, so what is something that you struggled with when you first went to the remote working lifestyle? What was hard for you?
One of the things I struggled with, I think, is really kind of building in the connections and stuff, and trying to, make sure I'm staying in touch with people who I work with. Sometimes you can kind of feel out of the loop when you're remote working. So it's important, I think, to really touch base with people. and really reach out to kind of foster the communication.
How do you do that? How did you get yourself to do that?
One of the things that I've done is to try to make sure I think about who I'm working with during the day and interact. Sometimes it might be as simple as asking a question. Maybe you think you know the answer, but just trying to clarify, or to trying to kind of go over something with somebody when you have an idea. Making sure, for instance, I know the other day I was struggling with something. I tried to say, okay, I'm gonna look at this for 20 minutes, 30 minutes. If I can't find a solution, if you're Googling, you're looking around, you're looking at stuff. If you can't find a solution, then okay, I'm going to ask so-and-so.
Okay. Oh, that's a good plan actually. So setting a deadline or a time limit. Okay, give yourself 20, 25 minutes and then reach out. So just it sounds like what you're saying is you're finding excuses and ways to reach out. Like maybe you don't have to reach out. Maybe if you spent an hour on the problem, you would be able to figure it out by yourself. But instead, setting maybe a shorter time limit, reaching out to more people, communicating when you're leaving. It sounds like this concept that I like to tell people about, which is called working out loud. So you're making your work observable to others and communicating more than you normally would, I would think.
Yeah, that's important to kind of, like you said, work out loud. Let people know where you are, what you're doing, what you're working on. That's where I think, if there's ways to share status. I know I've seen some people talk about, maybe you have a status call or something like that, but also too, I've seen some people on remote teams sharing like an asynchronous status report where they put some, like on a Slack channel. I've seen some people talk about that. Okay, what are you working on today? You put that on the Slack channel because, as you know, people work at all different times of the day and whatever time zone they're in.
Yeah, indeed. Like for instance, it's almost 7:30 a.m. your time. You will not find me working at that time. Normally, it's 2:30 p.m. for me, so that's a more reasonable time. But indeed, some people are morning people, but you will find me at 10 p.m. on my computer. So some people are evening people like that. So what about some of your favorite productivity hacks? How do you keep yourself on track?
I really try to make sure I keep a list of items that I need to work on. And then if it's simple things of getting outside, I think really help me, because if I get kind of holed up inside for long periods of time, I have a Fitbit that really reminds me, hey, okay, it's been 50 minutes and you've only taken 100 steps or something like that, because that helps me kind of get the blood flowing. And I find just a simple, okay, 10 minutes away, 5 minutes away can really help me recharge.
Oh, that's a good idea. Okay. And then you have an ongoing sort of a to-do list of what tools do you use?
I am a big fan of Evernote, so I've been using Evernote for quite a while, which I find really helpful. I know it just kind of depends on what people like. I know some people like OneNote from Microsoft as well, but I've really enjoyed Evernote. I'm a big fan of Michael Hyatt. He's a blogger out there, and he shares a lot of tips about things like Evernote and some of the other tools he uses. But that's what's worked for me. I really, from what I like to suggest to people is really to try some things out for 5 days, 10 days, see if it works. Because I've tried a lot of things, and a lot of them haven't worked, but that's okay. You're just kind of learning what works for you. So I'm sure, Lizette, you have some things that you use, but it's just finding what's best for you.
Indeed. And in fact, I was listening to, in preparation for somebody interviewing me later today, I was listening to one of his podcasts where he interviewed Jim Benson, of course, of Personal Kanban. And or Kanban. I can't, it depends on where in the world you are. I'll say Kanban. And so it inspired me actually to create my own personal Kanban board last night. So and in the past I've used Toodle-Do, which is an online tool, but then I thought, I'd like to do it physical. So indeed, I always experiment with these kind of things. But I'm curious, how do you use Evernote? What is it? How do you use it? I know people keep notes in there, but people use it in many different ways. What's the way that you use it?
So I have like ongoing lists for like each day, and then I have kind of a backlog that I keep for various items for different projects. So for instance, like working on the Agile Online Summit, I have notes on that about different things I need to do, people to contact, things to do to promote it, things that I need to update. So each project I will have maybe a note, and then things along with my calendar to kind of keep me on task and make sure I have everything together.
Okay, wow, interesting. So I've never thought to use Evernote as a to-do list. I kind of keep it as a like a repository of random thoughts. So that's a great way of using it. And I just interviewed one of the directors of Evernote a couple of episodes back. So very impressive. And they also highlight remote teams. So for people looking for, I'm also a big Evernote fan, so I'll promote that episode. And let's see. So we're ending the we're nearing the end of our time, I should say, but I'd like to end with what advice do you have for people? Let's make it even more specific. What advice do you have for people in the IT industry, since you're an IT career coach, if they're just starting out and they want to find remote work? What advice do you give them?
What I do is I think first to kind of test it out with maybe if they have a job now that's gives them that flexibility to test out that remote working and see if it is for them. Because like you mentioned, a lot of companies are flexible where they'll let you do that. I think test it out first, maybe a couple days. I know people that have jumped into it completely and really floundered, especially new people. I find it really helpful to start out maybe a couple days a week or maybe an afternoon a week and really build up from there to see if it's, if you do need to put in safeguards. For instance, one gentleman I know, he really struggled with it, trying to do it and just had a hard time working remote after he had made a move. And so test it out first and see if it works for you.
What didn't he like about it? Was it loneliness or discipline? What was it for him that wasn't working?
It was really the discipline. He had struggled with like getting the work he needed to be done on a certain time, a time frame. I think when he had worked in an office environment, he could focus better. And that's a thing at home, you can find a lot of distractions if you want to. So you got to really structure your environment as like you're talking to your virtual office. So those distractions aren't there.
Yeah, that is for sure. Even I get completely distracted. I'll find myself some days like, you're cleaning and you think, oh no, I've been doing this for far too long. I have a task list to get through, or just, going for a walk and going extra long. So indeed, and, in fact, my husband tried remote working, tried working from home and hated it, absolutely hated it, felt totally alone and disconnected. And I gave him all the tips in the world, but it just didn't suit his personality. And so he went out and bought an office where people now meet and likes it much, much better. And his team even likes it better. So of course he gives them the option to work from home or I would have to divorce him. But they do find that the office works better for him. So yeah, it's great advice. Test it out first because you never know if you're going to like it or not. And maybe working from home isn't good. Maybe a co-working space is good or a virtual co-working space is helpful. But yeah, great advice. So the best way to get in, last question, which is what is the best way to get in touch with you and find out more information? And you should give both the Agile Online Summit and your website as places so people can go there.
Yeah, the Agile Online Summit is the agileonlinesummit.com. And that is starting October 30th. So it's great if people would sign up and check that out. Lots of great speakers like Lizette's are going to be on there. And then also My IT Career Coach, if they want to go to myitcareercoach.com, and you can sign up for my newsletter. We have a free giveaway, and we're having a book there where it helps people kind of develop their IT career. It has some similar challenges that people will have, and kind of walks them through some of the things they can do to help develop a great IT career.
Okay, well, so all of you people out there who want to build your IT career up to another level, then I suggest going to myitcareercoach.com. And for all the people that want to hear great speakers like myself and lots of other great people on there too, I know Jason Little is on there and a whole bunch of people are there, agileonlinesummit.com. And you can find all about distributed Agile and how to make that work. So for all those naysayers out there, this conference is for you. Come and see what other people are doing to make remote work for their Agile teams. Tom, thank you so much for your time today. I hope that the Agile Online Summit is a huge success and that it becomes a regular summit that you do more than just this one time.
Well, thank you for letting me come on here, Lizette. I appreciate it. And thanks for being on the Agile Online Summit too. I appreciate you being willing to come on.
It's my honor. All right, everybody. Until next time, be powerful.